Hello, good evening, and welcome back. At this point, you've probably heard the idea that Donald Trump came out to say that the economy is doing well and George Floyd would be having a great day if he knew about this. In fact, even though he's dead, he would have a great day that, the economy is growing again after the coronavirus lockdown, or the China plague, as Trump called it through his briefing. And that is just blatantly not true. That is not what's happened. But Biden, as we see here from the BBC, has tried to come out from his cover to take a few shots before hiding again, which is a terrible strategy because although the DNC is, of course, trying to hide him, trying to protect him as best they can, try to get him to look as good as possible, which still isn't very good, the moment that the debates come out, that they get on a debate stage, and of course, the Democrats are trying to stop that from happening. They're trying to say, we should push this lockdown further. But, of course, Trump's saying, well, we should lift the lockdown. And now that you've got the riots happening, it seems that the Democrats are actually okay with the lockdown not being in place now. I mean, when it's business owners or just individual people saying, I want to be able to work so that I have a livelihood and I can afford to live, then you're clearly fascist and you're hoping that grandma's going to die. But when you want to go out to destroy those people's properties, then yes, you should definitely be encouraged. Yes, which is just the state of play for the Democrats at the moment. But nonetheless, if they're trying to hold the riots until the election in order to basically be a terrorist organization to say vote for us and the riots will stop, then they're going to try and avoid the debates like that. But otherwise, we're going to see Trump and Biden up on the stage debating each other, and it's almost going to be like abuse for old people, really, for the Democrats to put Biden in his diminished mental state up against Trump is a very, very sorry state of affairs. I mean, Biden won't remember half the stuff that he said here, but you'll know that Trump will go back through and go, I'm going to pick out these dozen things, and as soon as Biden touches on any of these, then I'm going to press it down hard on him. And it's going to be almost sad to watch, but I don't think we can ever get tired of winning, so let's bring it on. So, back to the topic in hand. How has the BBC lied about it this time? So they've said, US President Donald Trump has been condemned by his likely Democratic challenger for invoking George Floyd's name as he touted US jobs figures. Mr. Trump said Mr. Floyd, an unarmed black man allegedly murdered by a Minneapolis police officer, is looking down and saying, this is a great day. Allegedly murdered because of the difference in charges. Initially, third-degree murder, which is manslaughter, upgraded to second degree, not quite first, because first would have to be premeditated, which would only have happened if they knew each other beforehand. And it does seem like they did, Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, possibly in the porn industry. Because, of course, George Floyd wasn't a stranger to the police. Of course he wasn't. That's probably why he did resist arrest as much as he did, because he knew that third strike rule, that he'd be behind bars for 25 years and didn't want to do that. And therefore, he was going to lose his life one way or the other. But what did Trump say? I think it's best said not reading what BBC have written, but instead just showing you exactly what Trump said. From his almost hour-long press conference, this is the bit in question. He's signing the bill into law, so he's quoting from it and talking about it. And this is it.
Equal justice under the law must mean that every American receives equal treatment in every encounter with law enforcement, regardless of race, color, gender, or creed. They have to receive fair treatment from law enforcement. They have to receive it. We all saw what happened last week. We can't let that happen. Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying there's a great thing that's happening for our country. There's a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of equality. It's really what our Constitution requires, and it's what our country is all about. I just want to finish by...
And that's all that he says on it. That basically 50 seconds from 50 minutes is all that he mentions on George Floyd. It's a regular political standpoint of saying, this is what I've been about the whole time. Here's something contemporary that has happened. Let's bring it in order to say I'm with the times and what I've been saying the whole time is correct, and this is just another example of how I've been correct the whole time. It's what everybody does, and it could be a bit crass. Sure, it seems unnecessary, but I suppose in this political climate, you do have to address such things. And so he did, in order to say it's trying to take the wind out of the sails, to say it's institutional racism and it's all systemic, to basically say that we're going for equality of opportunity. Everybody gets to do the same. And hey, the outcome is then down to yourself as an individual. We're not going to make you do anything. We're not going to stop you from doing anything. As long as it goes along with the law, and everyone's got equal treatment. So if you find yourself in a bad situation, it's your fault. And if you find yourself in a good situation, well done. You deserve it. That's his point. So that when they try and say, but things need to be changed because it's institutional racism, he's saying, well, no, it isn't. And in that press conference, he did also mention other examples of how he's helped out black Americans more so than previous administrations, obviously having the lowest black unemployment during his presidency, as well as for small universities. He said that there were 34 who come back year after year hoping for more funding. And he's saying, well, why are you coming back every year? Why don't we get something sorted out for a longer term? They're like, well, that would be great. And he was saying that they said they felt like beggars before because the previous administration, under Obama, of course, didn't do anything. One before that weren't very helpful. But he's saying, let's just make something that's longer lasting. Let's get it done. Trying to pick himself up with the black community that used to like him, of course. Doing the cameos in rap music videos. But now, of course, he's Orange Man Bad. But just to contrast what we've seen with how the BBC put it at the head of their article, and then they juxtapose it very quickly. Now that you've seen the context, here's what they're trying to show.
Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying, there's a great thing that's happening for our country. There's a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of equality. It's really what our Constitution requires, and it's what our country is all about. Today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history.
And that's it. That is how they juxtapose it. They don't tell you what he's talking about or anything like that. They're basically just saying, so we know about George Floyd and how terrible it is, and now Trump's saying it's a great day for equality. What's this all about? So, you... dirty fear merchants. So, yes, okay. Biden tried to have a bit of a snap and saying, George Floyd's last words, I can't breathe, echoed all across this nation and quite frankly around the world. And they really shouldn't have done. And he said for the president to try to put any other words in the mouth of George Floyd, I think, frankly, is despicable. Well, he didn't, so good. Fantastic. He said, while campaigning in his home state of Delaware on Thursday night, he said Mr. Trump brings out the worst of some Americans, and they're probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there. They're just not very good people. So he's hearkening back to what Clinton said about the basket of deplorables, which, of course, worked out so well for her. She said half of them, he's trying to cut it down to 10 to 15%. And please, stop demonizing people like this, unless you're picking out specifics. I'm picking out this one specifically from BBC, of course. I'm trying to find the name of the author now, who obviously had to see that clip before editing it out of context and then reporting on it incorrectly just to push a narrative as a lie. That's what they did. So, yes, I'll pick out them in particular. And any of the DNC who are responsible for putting Joe Biden to the front when there clearly isn't that support for him, and it seems to be just to get a secondary female running rate, getting their vice president to be female, hoping that Biden will die in office so they can get their first female president. That seems to be their plan as well, which I know is callous and crass of me to mention, but nonetheless is what seems to be the narrative that they're trying to push. So, at least in Biden's defense, he does say that they're just not very good people, and he does still refer to the people as people, because of course the demonizing language when mention people like liken them to termites, like Farrakhan has done about Jews, for example, which of course we know is connected with the DNC and Elon Omar in particular, then that is where if you dehumanize people, then you start to see people, of course, not being treated like humans, and that is a repeated thing around the world throughout history that if people aren't seen as people, then they're not treated as people, and that is what encourages the atrocities to take place, because then you don't have the compassion that you normally have for other people. So at least Biden is still saying they're people. So I'll give him that. That's all I can give him, though. What do the job figures show? Because he was also talking about the economy bouncing back, that the estimate for May was that there would be about 9 million job losses throughout May, and that the unemployment rate would go over 20%, which would be the worst since the Great Depression. What actually happened? They didn't lose 9 million jobs. They gained 2.5 million. Like these predictions, how wrong can you be, really? And BBC love to point out, for black workers, however, the unemployment rate crept upwards from 16.7 to 16.8. It's a 0.1% increase. Wow. And they do mention why in a moment. The losses from coronavirus pandemic have hit minority and low-wage workers hardest. It's the low-wage workers that have been hit hardest, of course, because it's going to be the hospitality roles. It's going to be the unskilled workers. It's going to be where it doesn't really matter on the person, because pretty much anybody could do the job, and therefore they've been dropped because they aren't integral. They in on themselves. The role is integral for regular running, but they're not for the running, the groundwork of the business, and therefore, of course, they've been let go. So hey, get back to education and encouraging people to stay in school, don't do drugs, and don't go to prison. And maybe there wouldn't be such a big problem for black workers. But at least they were trying to work. Makes a change. The Hispanic unemployment rate declined in April from 18.5% to 17.2%, and it fell among white workers from 13.8 to 12.4. So yes, jolly good. Let's hope that Trump can continue to raise the black employment, so that again he sets another record of having the best black employment or lowest black unemployment, because that would just be terrific to be able to go into the next election saying that, yeah, not only have I done it before the pandemic, but now we've bounced back tremendously quickly. We're going to see phenomenal growth in the third and fourth quarter, and hopefully we'll have evidence to show that and say, yes, we've been able to bounce back. We're going to hold China accountable for the China plague, and we're going to be just fine. And then how can people not get behind him? If he's able to overcome these riots with a National Guard of which people support and get out of this pandemic and bounce back, they are two incredibly testing things. One threatens to put you into the depression. The other threatens civil war. If you can overcome both those things, I mean, this is why they call him God Emperor, really, isn't it? It really is. So, back to George Floyd, neck restraints. That is what they're putting down as to the problem with it. So, some are banning police neck restraints. Sounds lovely, but I think it's a bad idea. The reason for this is because of how they say here. The Minneapolis City Council and the Minnesota Department on Human Rights on Friday agreed to ban police neck restraints and chokeholds. The new policy, which will be enforceable in court, requires any officer, regardless of rank, to verbally and physically intervene if they witness a colleague using such unauthorized force. So, if done correctly, neck restraints, chokeholds, are the safest ways to gain control of somebody. You're not striking them, you're not bruising them, you're not cutting them, you're not breaking any bones, you're not putting them into locks, you are choking them out. They then lose consciousness for about 10-20 seconds, which gives you enough time to restrain them in any other way, for example, handcuffs, ties, whatever you might need to do. And no one's been hurt in the process. So what you need is not less training and saying, oh, don't do that. Instead, you're just going to have to beat them over the head to get them to comply. Great. No, instead, you should have more training. People like Jocko Willink, of course, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and say, this is how you gain control of the situation without hurting anybody. And therefore, it will not escalate because you know what you're doing and you won't get flustered and you will be able to take control of the situation. That is what you need. More education and practice, and these skills to go in on a really regular basis. You do need high physical requirements for police and how to essentially a street fight, but to grapple in a way that keeps people safe. That is what the police are supposed to do. That is what you need on, at the very least, a monthly basis, but it really should be at least once a week, in terms of just say, okay, we got the grappling class, here's what we're going to do. That within the police forces, they should really have their own jiu-jitsu gym and their academy in order to get people to know how to grapple. You know how to get them to the ground, use ground game to get control of the situation. Nobody needs to get hurt. Therefore, you don't need to rely on a weapon and use deadly force. Instead, you can control the situation very calmly and effectively, and fewer people get hurt because the police know what they're doing, and then they might be respected more as well. And therefore, you do need the PT requirements to be higher. And it might be then impossible for women to get these positions because they literally don't have the strength to be able to overpower someone unless they've had about at least 3 years of training. Then maybe they could try and skip a couple of weight classes, but it would still be dangerous, and they would most likely need to rely on a weapon in order to even the playing fields. So, that's my take on it. There's some honesty for you, and there's a solution for you as well, because with people asking for change for systemic institutional racism, they don't have any firm ideas of what the change should be, because there aren't any. It's just all virtue signaling. The only change that could be made that would get them what they want is to say, so these black people, which are disproportionately responsible for the violent crime and are therefore being arrested more, we shouldn't hold them accountable for their own actions. We shouldn't treat them at the same standard as white people. We shouldn't expect as much from black people as we do from white, because they're only black, don't you know? That seems to be what they want. If they're saying, we need a change, they're saying the black people need preferential treatment because they can't be held responsible for their own actions. So, if that's what they mean, fuck off. If that isn't what they mean, and they're just virtue signaling, fuck off. If there's something else that I'm missing completely, then please let me know down below. But as always, until next time, have a good one.